Why do some people walk into a room and immediately command attention, while others quietly doubt themselves, even when they are just as capable? Why do some people take bold action, while others hesitate, overthink, and hold themselves back? Most people believe confidence is something you are either born with or without. But neuroscience tells a very different story. Confidence is not a personality trait. It is a pattern your brain learns over time. Your brain is constantly building pathways based on experience, habits, and beliefs. If those experiences reinforce fear, hesitation, or self-doubt, your brain learns to expect failure. But if those experiences reinforce action, progress, and resilience, your brain begins to build something powerful: confidence. In this episode, we will explore the psychology and neuroscience behind confidence. You will discover why some people appear naturally confident, why others struggle with self-doubt, and most importantly, how you can rewire your brain to build confidence through action. Because confidence is not magic. It is a skill your brain can learn. Many people believe confidence is something you are born with. They look at confident individuals and assume those people naturally possess a special trait that others simply don't have. It can appear as if confidence belongs only to certain personalities, the outgoing, the charismatic, the naturally bold. But this belief is one of the biggest myths about confidence. Confidence is not a gift that some people receive at birth while others are left without it. Instead, confidence is something the brain gradually develops through experience. Think about a child learning to walk. At first, the child is unsure and unstable. They take a few steps, fall down, and try again. Each attempt strengthens their balance and coordination. Eventually, walking becomes effortless. Confidence develops in a very similar way. When your brain repeatedly experiences success, progress, or resilience after failure, it begins to build a belief that you are capable. This belief slowly turns into confidence. But when the brain repeatedly experiences avoidance, hesitation, or negative self-talk, it learns a different pattern. Instead of expecting progress, it begins to expect difficulty or failure. The important thing to understand is that the brain is always learning. Every experience, every action, and every decision contributes to the mental patterns that shape how confident you feel. This means that confidence is not fixed. It can grow stronger or weaker depending on the habits and experiences you reinforce. Once you realize that confidence is something the brain learns, a powerful possibility emerges. If the brain can learn self-doubt, it can also learn confidence. And that means confidence is not something you wait for. It is something you build. The human brain is constantly learning from experience. Every time you try something new, succeed at a task, or overcome a challenge, your brain records that experience. These experiences shape the neural pathways that influence how you think, react, and behave in the future. This process is known as neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and adapt over time. Confidence grows when the brain begins to recognize patterns of progress. For example, imagine someone who has never spoken in front of an audience. The first time they try, they might feel nervous, uncertain, and uncomfortable. But if they continue practicing, something interesting begins to happen. The brain starts to update its expectations. What once felt intimidating becomes more familiar. Each experience provides evidence that the situation is manageable. Slowly, fear decreases and confidence increases. The brain learns that it is capable of handling the challenge. But the opposite process can also occur. If someone repeatedly avoids situations that make them uncomfortable, the brain receives a different message. Instead of learning that the situation is manageable, it learns that the situation must be dangerous. Avoidance strengthens fear. Action strengthens confidence. The brain does not automatically know what you are capable of. It learns by observing your behavior. Every time you step forward despite uncertainty, your brain records a new experience of capability. Over time, these experiences accumulate. And the brain begins to build a new expectation about you. That you are someone who can face challenges and grow from them. That expectation becomes the foundation of confidence. One of the biggest misunderstandings about confidence is the belief that confidence must come before action. Many people think they need to feel confident before they start something new. They wait for the moment when their doubts disappear and their motivation feels strong. But that moment rarely arrives. In reality, confidence usually develops after action, not before it. Psychologists often describe this process as a confidence loop. The loop begins with a small action. That action leads to a result. Every attempt, every effort, and every small success sends a signal to the brain that you are capable of learning and adapting. Over time, those signals accumulate. The mind gradually replaces uncertainty with familiarity. What once felt intimidating becomes something you can handle. The key insight here is simple but powerful. Confidence is not the cause of action. It is the result of repeated action. The more you act, the more evidence your brain gathers that you can succeed. And that evidence becomes confidence. At first glance, failure and confidence may seem like opposites. Most people assume that failure damages confidence and that success is the only path to feeling capable. But the psychology of confidence tells a more surprising story. Failure, when interpreted correctly, can actually strengthen confidence. Every skill you admire, whether it's public speaking, leadership, creativity, or athletic ability, is built through a long process of trial and error. No one begins as an expert. The difference between confident individuals and those who struggle with self-doubt often lies in how they interpret mistakes. Resilience is one of the strongest foundations of confidence. When you know that mistakes are part of the learning process, you stop fearing them as much. Instead of avoiding challenges, you begin to approach them with curiosity. You ask questions. You experiment. You adjust your strategy. Eventually, something important happens. The brain learns that failure is not the end of progress. It is part of progress. This realization removes a major psychological barrier. When failure loses its ability to define your identity, you become free to try, improve, and grow. And that freedom is one of the strongest forms of confidence a person can develop. Confidence is not only shaped by thoughts and experiences. It is also influenced by the body. The relationship between body language and the brain is surprisingly powerful. The way you hold your posture, move your body, and carry yourself sends signals back to your brain about how you feel. When someone stands upright, maintains eye contact, and moves with deliberate energy, the brain interprets these signals as signs of strength and control. These signals can influence hormone levels, emotional states, and even decision-making. Research in psychology suggests that expansive body language, such as standing tall with open posture, can increase feelings of confidence and reduce stress responses. On the other hand, closed or defensive body language can reinforce feelings of insecurity. Slouching, avoiding eye contact, and shrinking your physical presence can signal vulnerability to the brain. Over time, these signals shape how you perceive yourself. This means that confidence can be trained not only through mental habits but also through physical behavior. Simple changes in posture, breathing, and movement can begin to shift how your brain interprets situations. Standing taller, speaking clearly, and moving with intention may feel unnatural at first. But repeated physical behavior can gradually influence mental states. The body and brain are constantly communicating. And when you change the signals your body sends, you can begin to reshape the emotional patterns your brain produces. Confidence, in many ways, is not only something you think. It is something you practice with your entire presence. Inside every person's mind there is a constant stream of internal dialogue. This inner voice narrates experiences, interprets situations, and often judges performance. While many people barely notice it, this voice plays a powerful role in shaping confidence. For some people, the inner voice is encouraging. It says things like, "You can figure this out. This might be difficult, but you've handled challenges before." But for others, the inner voice becomes highly critical. It focuses on mistakes, exaggerates weaknesses, and constantly predicts failure. The brain does not easily distinguish between external feedback and internal dialogue. When negative thoughts repeat frequently, they strengthen the neural pathways associated with self-doubt. But this process can also work in the opposite direction. When people deliberately practice constructive self-talk, they begin to reshape how their brain interprets challenges. Instead of focusing on limitations, the inner voice can emphasize effort, learning, and resilience. This does not mean pretending that difficulties do not exist. It means shifting the narrative from criticism to growth. For example, replacing a thought like, "I'm terrible at this," with something more constructive, "I'm still learning this," may seem like a small change, but over time it can significantly influence the brain's expectations. The inner voice is always present. And learning to guide that voice toward encouragement rather than criticism is one of the most powerful ways to build lasting confidence. Confidence rarely appears all at once. Instead, it develops gradually through a series of small victories. Every time you accomplish a task, solve a problem, or overcome a challenge, your brain receives evidence that you are capable. These experiences activate the brain's reward system, releasing chemicals such as dopamine that reinforce positive behavior. Dopamine plays an important role in motivation and learning. When the brain associates effort with reward, it becomes more willing to repeat that effort in the future. This is why small wins are so powerful. They create a feedback loop between action, progress, and belief. For example, imagine someone who wants to become more confident in public speaking. Standing in front of a large audience might feel overwhelming at first. But speaking briefly in a small meeting could be a manageable first step. Confidence thrives in environments where progress is visible. And the most reliable way to create visible progress is to celebrate and build upon small victories. Over time, those victories combine to create something powerful. A deep belief in your ability to learn, adapt, and succeed. Self-doubt often feels like a natural part of personality. Some people assume that they are simply not confident by nature. But psychology suggests that self-doubt is usually the result of learned mental patterns. These patterns develop through repeated experiences, feedback, and internal dialogue. When someone repeatedly focuses on mistakes or negative outcomes, the brain begins to expect those outcomes. This expectation influences behavior. Once a person begins challenging these automatic assumptions, the brain gradually becomes more flexible. New experiences begin replacing old beliefs. Instead of reinforcing doubt, the brain begins to recognize progress. Breaking the self-doubt pattern does not eliminate uncertainty entirely. But it weakens the mental habits that turn uncertainty into paralysis. And once those habits weaken, something new becomes possible. The freedom to act despite doubt. Confidence is not something that appears suddenly during important moments. It is usually the result of daily habits that gradually shape the brain's expectations. Just as physical strength develops through regular exercise, mental confidence develops through repeated psychological training. Small daily behaviors can have a powerful cumulative effect. Setting achievable goals, completing tasks, and keeping commitments to yourself all reinforce the belief that you are reliable and capable. These actions send consistent signals to the brain. Each signal strengthens the neural pathways associated with confidence. Another important habit involves exposure to challenges. When people regularly place themselves in situations that stretch their abilities, even slightly, the brain becomes more comfortable with uncertainty. Over time, the unfamiliar begins to feel familiar. Confidence is not built only during major achievements. It grows quietly through everyday choices. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, complete a difficult task, or face something uncomfortable, your brain updates its expectations. The message becomes clearer with repetition. You are someone who takes action and grows from experience. And that belief gradually becomes a stable foundation for confidence. Confidence is not something reserved for a special group of people. It is not a personality trait you either have or don't have. Confidence is something the brain learns. And like any learned skill, it can be trained. Right now, your brain already contains thousands of beliefs about what you can or cannot do. Some of those beliefs came from past failures, criticism, or moments when things didn't go the way you hoped. But those moments do not define your future. The brain is constantly changing. Every action you take today begins to reshape how your mind sees you tomorrow. So if you truly want to build confidence, focus on these simple psychological steps. First, start smaller than you think you should. Confidence grows from repeated success. Choose small challenges you can complete daily. Each small win teaches your brain that progress is possible. Second, take action before you feel ready. Waiting for confidence keeps people stuck. Action is what creates confidence, not the other way around. Third, change the way you speak to yourself. Your inner voice is powerful. Replace harsh criticism with constructive guidance. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," train your mind to say, "I'm learning how to do this." Fourth, treat failure as information, not identity. Every mistake is data that improves your next attempt. The most confident people in the world did not avoid failure, they used it. Finally, practice confidence physically. Stand taller. Speak clearly. Move with intention. Your body can teach your brain how confidence feels. Remember this. Confidence is not built in one moment. It is built in hundreds of small decisions to move forward despite doubt. And if you keep taking those steps, something powerful will happen. One day, you will look back and realize the person you once wished to become is now the person you are. If this video helped you understand the psychology of confidence, subscribe to Growth Mindset Lab, where we explore the hidden patterns of the mind and learn how to become better, stronger, and wiser. And remember, your brain is always learning. Make sure it is learning courage.